Hello, it's time to let go of all the burdens of today. Let your body sink into the soft bed. Today we will listen to a story about letting go of anger so as not to burn yourself. Close your eyes, take a deep breath in, and exhale slowly. Don't try to think, just relax. Welcome to Lotus Whisper. Tonight, we begin by simply acknowledging the burden of the day. All the small worries, the hurried thoughts, the fleeting moments of frustration, let them gather like clouds far above you. You are here, safe and still. The Buddha once offered an image of profound simplicity, a timeless truth that cuts through the complexity of our suffering. He spoke of anger not as a reaction to the outside world, but as a dangerous, self-inflicted wound. Imagine holding a burning piece of charcoal in your hand, intending to throw it at another. Before you can even reach your target, the intense heat, the biting pain, is entirely yours. You are the one being scorched. This powerful image is the essence of our journey tonight, understanding that the flame of anger, regardless of its source, first and foremost consumes the one who holds it. We hold on to resentment, to irritation, to the memory of a slight, believing it harms the other person, yet it is our own peace, our own sleep, that is destroyed. Let us prepare to gently set down this burning coal and find the coolness of true release. Part 1. The Fire Within. Understanding the nature of anger. The path to releasing the fire begins with simply looking at the flame. We often treat anger as an external event, something done to us, a justifiable response to an injustice. Yet, the deep insight of the Dharma reminds us that the location of the burning is always within. This is the first profound realization of the quiet mind. The fire resides in the hearth of the self. Imagine an ancient, remote Zen temple nestled high in the mountains. The air is crisp, scented with pine and the faint, sweet smoke of incense. There is a young monk, let us call him Kenji, who is diligently working in the temple kitchen. Kenji is a serious, dedicated student, but his temper is known to flare up like dry tinder. He believes his anger is righteous, a passion for perfection, a justified response to the carelessness of others. One cold morning, Kenji is preparing the morning meal, the oryoki bowls for the master and the other monks. The work is delicate and precise. An older, slower monk accidentally bumps a shelf, and a tray of perfectly washed vegetables crashes to the stone floor. Kenji feels a sudden, intense heat rising from his belly to his chest. His breath catches, his hands clench. He opens his mouth to shout, to unleash the torrent of his perfectly justified rage. But then, he hears the faintest sound, the quiet, rhythmic sweeping of leaves outside the window, performed by the temple's most senior monk, an old man named Master Hakuin. This Master Hakuin never spoke a harsh word. His presence was like a mountain.
Lake, deep, still, and always cool. Kenji looks down at the mess, the ruined vegetables, and then up at the flustered, apologetic face of the older monk. And for the first time, in the instant before he spoke, he saw the anger, not as a weapon aimed at the other, but as a poison rushing through his own veins. The Buddhist teaching flashed into his mind, anicca, the impermanence of all things, the moment of perfection he was clinging to, the beautiful arrangement of the washed vegetables, was already gone. To be angry about their ruin was to struggle against the undeniable nature of the universe. Everything changes, everything passes. Kenji saw how his anger was simply a fierce, painful clinging to an expectation that the world should not be as it is. He was clinging to his idea of order, his timeline,
his perfection. The vegetables were already spilled. The fact was finished. His suffering, the burning sensation in his chest and throat, was the secondary reaction, the self-made fire. He took a long, shaky breath and looked at the older monk's bowed head. "It is a fine morning," Kenji said, his voice surprisingly quiet, though still tight with the remnants of the heat. "We will wash them again." This is the true lesson of the fire within. Anger is a form of powerful, painful attachment. It is the ego's frantic protest against the vast, impersonal flow of reality. When we cling to the idea that things should be permanent, that people should be perfect, or that we should never be inconvenienced, we build a scaffold for the flames. Imagine yourself now, lying still, feeling the weight of your own body on the mattress. Recall a moment of irritation today, even a very small one. Do not judge it, simply observe its echo in your body. Was it a tension in your neck? A quickening of your heart? A clenching in your stomach? That physical sensation is the heat of the charcoal, the fire that you, the holder, are feeling. The other person, the situation, may not even be aware of the intensity of your internal suffering. The practice is to understand that upadana, the powerful, grasping attachment, is what fuels the fire. We don't just feel an emotion, we cling to the story about the emotion. I have a right to be angry. This person always does this. We feed the flame with narratives of injustice and righteousness, and in doing so, we commit ourselves to a night of restless sleep and a day of internal heat. Master Hakuin, sweeping the fallen leaves outside, embodied the cool wisdom of non-clinging. The leaves fall. They are swept. The spilled vegetables are washed again. The sun rises and sets. Everything is in motion. To meet the change with the stillness of non-reaction is to prevent the kindling from catching fire. As you drift now, let the image of that burning charcoal fade. Feel the coolness returning to your hands, to your chest. The deep peace of the Dharma whispers. The injury may be given, but the anger is taken. And what is taken can also be gently released. Rest now in the understanding that you can choose not to carry the heat. The truth of impermanence is the water that puts out the flames of attachment. Let it soak into your mind. The mirror's reflection, seeing yourself in the blaze. We often see anger as a spotlight aimed outward, fiercely illuminating the flaws, failures, and injustices perpetrated by the one who has provoked us. We feel justified in this outward focus, certain that the cause of our suffering lies entirely with the external stimulus. But the fundamental practice of deep awareness, samasati, or right mindfulness, requires a radical shift in perspective. It demands that we take that powerful light and turn it inward, treating the emotion not as a justifiable response, but as a mirror reflecting the disturbed, agitated state of our own mind. To see yourself in the blaze is to recognize with chilling clarity that the heat you feel, the intensity of the burning, is not the other person's property. It is your own mind on fire, kindling itself from within. Imagine a small rustic hermitage built high against a sheer cliff face, far removed from the clamor of any village or marketplace. Here lives a solitary monk, known throughout the region not for his scholarship or his miracles, but for his unwavering, mountain-like composure, Master Ryokan. His life is a testament to the power of non-reaction, a constant, quiet meditation on the impermanence of all things. Yet even in his remote sanctuary, the world occasionally intrudes, offering precise and often cruel tests of his inner peace. One oppressive summer afternoon, when the air was thick, humid, and utterly still, Ryokan was seated in the heart of his hermitage, engaged in quiet meditation. The only sounds were the distant buzz of insects and the rustle of dry bamboo. Suddenly, this profound stillness was shattered. A small group of loud, boisterous, and visibly irritated travelers, lost and exhausted by the heat, stumbled upon his secluded haven. They were angry at their own situation, at the misleading map, the relentless sun, the scarcity of water, and seeing the peaceful, unmoving monk, they felt an immediate, perverse urge to displace their own discomfort onto him. They decided in a collective moment of petty malice to disrupt his peace. They began to mock him, shouting insults that were both crude and intensely personal. They attacked his simple patched robes, his smooth shaved head, his humble, quiet life. They called him lazy, useless, a parasite on society, a beggar who contributed nothing. They threw small, harmless pebbles that struck the earthen wall near his seated figure. The torrent of verbal abuse was relentless, a wave of negativity designed to break his resolve and pull him down into their own pit of misery and agitation. Ryokan remained utterly and completely still. His posture was perfect, his spine straight, his hands resting gently in his lap. He did not engage with the words. He did not look up. But he was not in a trance or in denial. He was practicing the most difficult and powerful form of mindfulness. He felt the immediate, sharp sensation of the rising heat. He recognized the initial instinctual urge to recoil, to defend, to verbally retaliate, to explain, to justify his life. All the hallmarks of the ego under attack. He felt the tightening of his muscles, the catch in his breath, the rush of blood to his head. The sensations were raw, powerful, and undeniable. Yet, crucially, he held them in the vast, quiet spaciousness of his awareness. He refused to become the sensation. He observed his internal state not as my anger or anger at them, but simply as a powerful, fleeting phenomenon, like a sudden, localized storm passing through an empty sky. He named the physical manifestation silently, internally. Contraction, resistance, the desire to strike back, heat. He held the entire chaotic moment in the palm of his mind, refusing to clench his mental fist around the narrative of injustice. He was not engaging with the travelers' words or their actions. He was solely engaged with his own internal response. He understood the fundamental teaching. The world outside has no direct access to his peace. Only he could grant the travelers access to his tranquility by choosing to react. If he allowed the internal fire to ignite, if he answered insult with a defensive retort or mockery with contempt, he would instantly cease to be Ryokan, the peaceful observer. He would become a mere vessel for their chaos, allowing them to seize control of his internal weather. The travelers, finding absolutely no reaction, no resistance to push against, no defensive fire to fight, became confused and disoriented. Their insults, which were intended to be sharp and painful, met no surface to stick to. They were, as the Zen metaphor goes, like arrows shot into a vast pool of water. They simply passed through the liquid and disappeared without leaving a visible or lasting mark. Their aggressive energy had nothing to feed on and nowhere to land. It simply collapsed in on itself. Eventually, they grew tired of the monk's silence and the unyielding peace of the hermitage. They had failed to ignite the fire they sought. Mumbling under their breath, they turned and departed, their frustrated, aggressive energy dissipating harmlessly back into the hot forest path. After they were gone, Master Ryokan slowly and deliberately opened his eyes. He was not relieved or triumphant. He was simply present. He spent a few moments feeling the residue of the energy in the air and in his own body, noting the last lingering echoes of the temptation to react. He realized with deep certainty that had he allowed that fire to catch, he would have suffered a far greater injury than any wound the travelers could have inflicted. He would have broken his own concentration, violated his own commitment to peace, and sacrificed his own quiet for the sake of a pointless external conflict. This is the profound, life-altering lesson of the mirror's reflection. When you are insulted, frustrated, or betrayed, the words and actions of the other person are merely stimuli. They are the external conditions. The anger is your chosen, secondary response. It is your interpretation, your valuation, your decision to contract your awareness around the perceived hurt and generate heat. It is your mind saying, "This should not be," and fighting the reality of the moment. The essential practice is to learn how to deliberately create a pause, a small, sacred, and infinitely powerful gap between the external stimulus and your habitual reaction. In that gap, you can see that the person shouting insults, the driver cutting you off in traffic, the colleague who undermined you, is merely a reflection of your own ego's need to be right, to be respected, to be in control, to be safe. It is your own expectation of how the world should behave that is truly being challenged. By staying still and watching the fire of that internal conflict burn out on its own terms, without feeding it the kindling of a counterargument, a defensive thought, or a justifying narrative, you extinguish the suffering safely within. Imagine now that you are lying utterly still, wrapped in the cool embrace of your own sanctuary. Let the sound of the wind or the complete silence be your only companions. If a difficult memory from the day or a persistent, irritating thought tries to intrude, demanding your attention, demanding your emotional energy, meet it with the calm, unwavering stillness of Master Ryokan. Do not engage with the narrative of the grievance. Do not reconstruct the scene or review the facts. Instead, focus entirely on the physical sensation of the annoyance, the tension, the slight, and simply watch it. Observe the heat. Notice its boundaries. See how it vibrates and how it changes. Do not fan it. Let it rise and fall in your awareness, like a fleeting wave in a vast ocean. Understand that by watching it, you are starving it. The mind is the only place where the flame of anger truly burns, and the mirror of mindfulness is the irreplaceable tool that reveals the devastating truth. The hand holding the burning charcoal, the hand that is being painfully scorched, is tragically, inescapably your own. When we see this clearly, completely, and without self-judgment, the choice is no longer an intellectual dilemma. It becomes a simple, immediate act. Drop the heat, or continue to be consumed. The choice for peace is the choice to be still and to see the world as it truly is, a constantly flowing, unpredictable process that cannot and should not be controlled by the force of your anger. Rest now, knowing that the greatest spiritual power is not the strength to fight, but the profoundly liberating strength to refrain from fighting. Even within the silent chambers of your own mind, let the space around you become
Cool, quiet, and infinitely spacious. Let the last embers of the day's frustrations turn to cool gray ash, drifting away into the night air. Breathe in the cooling stillness. Breathe out the last vestiges of heat. You are safe. You are at peace. The two arrows, the pain of the initial hurt and the suffering of reaction. Rest deeply now
and allow your awareness to settle like dust on a quiet floor. We have seen that anger is a fire we hold ourselves. Now, we turn to one of the most practical and profound teachings in the Buddhist canon, the parable of the two arrows. This teaching reveals the precise anatomy of suffering, showing us exactly where our choice for peace lies in the face of pain. It is a roadmap to liberation from self-inflicted misery. Imagine a simple, sun-drenched village nestled near a wide, slow-moving river. There lives a woman named Anya, known for her vibrant spirit and, unfortunately, her quick temper. Anya had suffered a deep injustice. Her small, carefully tended garden, her source of both food and peace, was deliberately trampled and ruined by a jealous neighbor. The initial moment of discovery was the first arrow. It struck her immediately and physically. She felt the shock, the searing disappointment, the profound loss. This first arrow is pain. It is the unavoidable, natural consequence of living in a world of impermanence, loss, betrayal, sickness, injury, and death. It is the sensory and emotional reality of the trampling. Anya felt the tears rush to her eyes, a knot form in her stomach, and a wave of pure sadness wash over her. This pain is not negotiable. It is what it is. But immediately, Anya reached for the second arrow. This arrow is the one that causes the lasting, self-inflicted wound. It is the narrative, the judgment, the anger, and the frantic resistance to the initial pain. She didn't just feel sad. She began to think, how dare she? This is unfair. I'll get revenge. I can never forgive her. My life is ruined. The thoughts of revenge and righteous fury tightened the knot in her stomach, making the sadness sharp and toxic. She began to replay the scene, fueling her anger with every detail, picturing her neighbor's malicious smile. This second arrow, her mental, emotional reaction to the initial pain, caused 10 times more suffering than the actual ruined garden. The garden was a physical loss. The anger and resentment were a spiritual destruction. The first arrow was the initial hurt. The second arrow was the self-inflicted wound of her rage. The Buddhist teaching is uncompromisingly clear. We cannot avoid the first arrow. We will all be struck by pain and loss. But the true measure of our inner freedom is whether we choose to shoot the second arrow. The second arrow is always optional. Now bring this wisdom into your own mind as you rest. Recall a time today when you felt slighted, offended, or disappointed. The event itself, the initial words, the unexpected failure, the minor inconvenience, that was the first arrow. It caused a brief, sharp flash of pain or surprise. But what did you do next? Did you let the first arrow fall away, tending only to the simple wound? Or did you immediately pick up the second, mental arrow? Did you start the inner dialogue? Why is this always happening to me? That person is an idiot. They did this deliberately. I should have said. Every time you relive the grievance, every time you fuel the resentment, every time you replay the argument in your head, you are pulling the second arrow out, examining it, sharpening it, and driving it deeper into your own heart. The neighbor who ruined Anya's garden suffered nothing that day. It was Anya, lying awake at night, consumed by her own thoughts of vengeance, who truly suffered. The practice of mindfulness is the practice of simply dropping the second arrow. It requires immense gentleness and a very firm resolve. When the pain of the first arrow strikes, you must pause and name it, just as Master Ryokan did. Pain, sadness, disappointment. And then, when the mind automatically reaches for the second arrow, the story about the pain, the anger about the sadness, you gently catch your hand and stop. You refuse to enter the mental fray. This refusal is the ultimate act of self-love and self-protection. It is saying, I will not let this temporary external event determine my permanent internal state. Think of the old Zen story of the two monks crossing the mud puddle. An old monk and a young monk are traveling together. They come to a muddy road where a beautiful young woman in a silk kimono is hesitating, unable to cross. The old monk, without a word, picks her up, carries her across the mud, and sets her down on the dry side. She thanks him, and they continue on their journey. Hours later, as they approach the monastery, the young monk, agitated and unable to contain himself, finally bursts out, "Master, we are monks. We are forbidden to touch women. How could you carry her?" The old monk simply smiles and replies, "I set her down hours ago. Are you still carrying her?" The first arrow was the physical act of touching. The old monk felt the initial discomfort, but set it down immediately. He did not shoot the second arrow of self-judgment or moral panic. The young monk, however, shot the second arrow, the relentless, self-inflicted suffering of moralizing, judging, and obsessing over a moment that was already finished. He carried the weight of the incident for hours. As you drift towards sleep, ask yourself, what second arrow am I still carrying from today? Is it the unfinished conversation, the perceived slight, the moment of impatience? Feel the weight of it, the heat of it, and then, with the softness of an exhale, simply let it fall. The path to peace is not about avoiding the first arrow, which is impossible. It is about committing, fiercely and lovingly, to never shoot the second. Let go of the story. Let go of the judgment. Let go of the self-righteous indignation. Only the present moment is real, and in this moment you are safe, resting, and free to heal. Let the wisdom of the two arrows be your shield against unnecessary suffering, allowing the quiet coolness to settle deep within your bones. Cooling the hearth, the practice of patience. Settle even deeper now, allowing the gentle warmth of your covers and the stillness of the room to envelop you. We have seen that anger is a self-made fire, and that our greatest suffering comes from the second, self-inflicted arrow of reaction. The natural antidote to this heat and haste is the cooling balm of patience, khanti in the ancient language. Patience is often misunderstood as mere passive waiting, a grudging tolerance of inconvenience. In the context of the Dharma, however, khanti is not weakness. It is a profound, active strength, an unshakable inner resolve to meet adversity not with resistance, but with vast, silent acceptance. It is the practice of protecting the heart by refusing to react. Imagine a severe winter in the high Himalayas, where the air itself seems to freeze the bones. High in a remote small monastery lives a young novice named Tenzin, whose task, every morning, is to fetch water from the frozen river below. The path is treacherous, icy, and long. Tenzin is diligent, but he is perpetually frustrated by one older monk, Master Lobsang, who seems to take a particular delight in testing Tenzin's temperament. Every day, just as Tenzin returns, meticulously carrying 2 heavy buckets of water without spilling a drop, Master Lobsang finds a way to disrupt him. One day, he might be standing in the doorway, forcing Tenzin to pause and lose his balance, splashing water onto the ground. The next, he might simply walk past too quickly, creating a draft that causes the water to slosh over the rim. It is always a small, seemingly careless act, but it is enough to ruin Tenzin's effort and ignite the familiar flame of anger in his chest. Tenzin's mind would race. Why is he doing this? He is an old master. He should know better. This is pointless cruelty. I wasted an hour for nothing. His initial pain, the shock of the cold splash, the fatigue of the journey, was quickly compounded by the intense, self-generated heat of resentment. He was holding the burning coal of anger, intending to throw a sharp word or a look of contempt at the master. One freezing morning, after another deliberate disruption, Tenzin knelt in front of the master's chamber, shaking not from the cold, but from suppressed rage. He decided he would finally confront the master. Master Lobsang looked up from his meditation cushion, his eyes gentle and clear like mountain ice. He smiled softly. Tenzin, you are carrying two weights, the water and the anger. Which is heavier? Tenzin stammered. Master, the water is heavy, but the injustice is heavier. You intentionally make me fail. Master Lobsang nodded slowly. The failure is simply the water on the ground. It is an inconvenience. The injustice you feel, that is the anger, and it is the fire you light yourself. You come back from the cold river, and you immediately light a second unnecessary fire inside you. Tell me, what is the nature of patience? Tenzin recited the rote teaching. Patience is enduring injury without retaliation. No, the master corrected, his voice soft but firm. That is only half the teaching. True patience, Kanti, is the unwavering understanding that all suffering is impermanent, that all actions rise from ignorance, and that your peace is more precious than your need to be right. You are practicing the patience of the muscles when you carry the water, but you must practice the patience of the mind when the water spills. He continued, when the water spills, the anger is a storm that rises. The practice of patience is to be the great mountain that the storm breaks against. The storm will rage, but the mountain does not move, it does not argue, it does not resist, and therefore it is unharmed. If you resist the storm, you become a weak tree that snaps. Master Lobsang revealed that his seemingly annoying actions were deliberate training, a fire test for Tenzin's spiritual strength. He was not trying to provoke Tenzin to shout. He was trying to provoke Tenzin to choose peace. He was showing him the exact moment the choice was made, the moment after the water spilled, but before the mind started the mental tirade. Tenzin took this teaching deeply into his heart. The next day, when the master, in an exaggerated, clumsy motion, again caused the water to splash, Tenzin felt the familiar heat rise. But this time, he remembered the mountain. He paused. He took a single, deep breath. He let the heat of the anger rise without becoming it. He watched it, felt it, and starved it of the mental fuel it needed. Instead of shouting, he simply bowed. Master, I apologize. I will fetch more water. He was not admitting fault. He was refusing to engage in conflict. He was choosing the coolness of inner peace over the temporary satisfaction of self-righteousness. And the moment he bowed without resentment, the master smiled, a true, unguarded smile for the first time. The test was over. The lesson was learned. The practice of Kanti had transformed the painful stimulus into an opportunity for profound spiritual growth. Patience, therefore, is not passive. It is the active, warrior-like strength that says, I will not let the chaos of the outside world penetrate the sanctuary of my inner silence. It is the resolve of the Bodhisattva, who vows to endure all suffering and all injustice, not out of resignation, but out of an unshakable commitment to love and clarity. As you lie here, resting, let us practice this patience of the mountain. If a thought of yesterday's frustration arises, a memory of being slighted, an impatient reaction you regret, or an obstacle that felt too large, do not chase it away. That is a form of resistance. Instead, simply observe it as a cloud passing the face of your mountain mind. Feel the irritation, the residual heat of the memory, and meet it not with judgment or resistance, but with a vast, spacious acceptance. Let the irritation be what it is, a fleeting, conditioned phenomenon. Do not move. Do not argue. Do not engage. Just be the mountain, steadfast and silent, allowing the storm of the mind to break harmlessly against your peace. Breathe in deeply, drawing the cool, crisp air down to your deepest self. Breathe out, releasing the grip of impatience and resentment. The more you practice this mountain-like stillness, the more the core of your being becomes unassailable. You are training the heart to be strong enough to withstand any flame, simply by refusing to burn itself. Rest now in the unwavering strength of Kanti. You are the mountain, and peace is your enduring nature. The empty pot. When the source of anger is void, settle your awareness even deeper now, breathing calmly and evenly. We have journeyed through the heat of anger, the self-inflicted wound of reaction, and the cooling strength of patience. Now, we arrive at the profound core of Zen and Mahayana wisdom, the concept of emptiness, or shunyata. This realization that the object of our anger lacks any solid, independent reality is the ultimate source of liberation. When we see that the pot we are clinging to is empty, our hand naturally relaxes its painful grip. Imagine a small Zen community in medieval Japan, struggling through a famine. Food is scarce and every grain of rice is precious. In the center of the community is the Great Hall, where a massive iron pot, essential for cooking the communal gruel, sits over the central fire pit. There is a dedicated, yet highly volatile monk named Jitsume who is deeply attached to the integrity of this pot. He sees it not just as cookware, but as a symbol of the community's survival and his own tireless effort. He is utterly attached to its perfection, its fullness, and its symbolic weight. One day, while Jitsume is away gathering firewood, a clumsy novice, rushing through the hall, accidentally knocks a large stone into the iron pot, cracking it severely. The pot is ruined. It will no longer hold water. Jitsume returns and sees the crack. The sight of the damage sends a seismic shock through him. The familiar fire of anger, magnified by the gravity of the situation, flares instantly and violently. He roars at the novice, his face contorted, his body trembling with the intensity of his rage and despair. "How could you? You have ruined us. You are careless," as his voice echoes through the empty hall. The Zen master of the temple, an old woman named Roshi Etsuko, steps quietly from the shadows. She does not reprimand the novice or Jitsume. She simply walks slowly to the cracked pot and gently touches the broken iron. "Jitsume," she asks, her voice barely a whisper, "what is it you are angry at?" Jitsume points a shaking finger at the iron. "The pot, master. It is broken. The novice who broke it." Roshi Etsuko nods. "Let us look deeper. You are angry at the pot because it no longer serves its function. It cannot hold the gruel. But what is the pot, truly?" Jitsume, still reeling from the anger, struggles to answer. It is iron. It is a vessel. It is our survival. Ah, Roshi Atsuko smiles faintly. It is iron and the concept of vessel. Without the concept, it is just shaped earth and metal. It is only iron. And without the water, it is only emptiness inside. And without your attachment to its function, what is the broken pot? She continues, her voice like soft rain. Jitsume, the pot was not eternally a pot. Before it was a pot, it was ore in the ground, then molten metal, then a shape. Tomorrow, it will be rust, and eventually dust. The pot, in its essence, has no fixed independent identity. It is empty of inherent existence, empty of being a perfect pot or a ruined disaster. It is merely a collection of temporary circumstances. She gently gestures to the trembling novice. And the novice? He is not eternally careless novice or culprit. He is a collection of body, feeling, perception, and thought. His carelessness yesterday is gone today. He is empty of fixed identity. He is only the changing stream of being. And your anger, Jitsume? It is only the shape of your attachment. It is your mind clinging fiercely to the illusion that the pot was supposed to be permanent, that the novice was supposed to be perfect, that the world was supposed to be controlled by your will. The Roshi's quiet words pierced the monk's fury. In that instant, Jitsume saw the anger not as a righteous defense of an essential thing, but as a foolish, lonely fight against emptiness. He realized that he was clinging to a concept of the pot, a concept of the novice, and a rigid concept of his own self as the victim. When the master pointed to the iron and stripped away all the labels, survival, perfection, loss, only the mere fact of the cracked iron remained, the concept, the attachment, the source of the anger, was revealed to be void of any true, independent substance. The practice of shunyata, as you rest now, is the most radical form of release. It asks you to look at the object of your current lingering irritation, the person, the comment, the unfinished task, and ask yourself, what is this, stripped of all my stories, judgments, and expectations? If you are angry at a person, remind yourself that they are merely a transient collection of elements, feelings, and changing moods. They are not a fixed, evil entity. They are empty of fixed identity. If you are angry at a broken promise, the promise itself is a construct of language, a concept with no inherent being. The anger is clinging to the idea of what should have been. Let the profound understanding of emptiness wash over you. Nothing has fixed boundaries. Nothing is permanent.
Nothing is worth burning yourself over, because the moment you grasp it, it changes and slips away. The pot is already dust. The insult is already air. The moment of failure is already past. Release your grip on the pot of attachment. Let your expectations dissolve into the vast, open space of the mind. The heat of anger can only sustain itself when it clings to a false sense of solidity. When you see the world as a fluid, empty stream of becoming, the fire has nothing left to burn. Let your mind become as vast and open as the empty hall, cool and spacious, welcoming all things, clinging to none. The rain of loving kindness, transforming the heat. Allow your body to sink another layer deeper into the comfort beneath you. Your mind is now vast, having witnessed the emptiness of attachment. The next step on this path of non-burning is to actively transform the residual heat of anger into the cooling essence of loving kindness, or metta. Where anger contracts the heart into a hard, defensive knot, metta is the gentle,
expansive rain that dissolves that knot and nourishes the whole field of your being. It is the practical antidote to hatred, the healing touch that repairs the self after the wound of anger has passed. Imagine an ancient forest in which a Zen monk named Kenshin is sitting by a scorched patch of earth. This earth was ravaged by a sudden, intense wildfire, the fire of his own bitter disappointment and resentment towards a person who had betrayed his trust. He had spent weeks holding on to the bitterness, reliving the hurt, letting the fire scorch his inner landscape until it mirrored the barren soil before him. The ground was hard, cracked, and incapable of supporting life. Kenshin realized that his heart felt exactly like that scorched patch. The anger was gone, replaced by a hollow, dry ache. He knew, intellectually, that he had dropped the burning coal, but the damage remained. He needed a way to heal the barrenness. He remembered the teaching of metta. The practice begins not with the person who caused the harm, but with the self. How can one offer kindness to an enemy if one is still at war with one's own wounded heart? Kenshin started his practice slowly, gently. He breathed in, acknowledging the stiffness, the lingering pain of the resentment. He breathed out, offering kindness to the self that had suffered, whispering internally, "May I be free from suffering. May I be safe. May I be healed." He focused on the feelings of warmth, ease, and gentle forgiveness towards his own vulnerability. He saw that his anger had been a clumsy attempt to protect a frightened self. Now he was offering true protection, unconditional acceptance. As he practiced this for many hours, the internal ground softened, becoming less rocky. He began to feel a subtle, healing current flowing through his chest, a quiet energy of self-compassion. This was the first rain, healing the dryness within. Once his own core felt stable and nourished, gently expanded the circle of his metta. He included those who were easier to love, his old teacher, a dear friend, a kind stranger he had met on the road. The feeling in his heart swelled, expanding like a warm golden light. Then came the difficult, crucial step, extending metta to the one who had caused him so much pain, the person he had resented. This is where the practice often meets the greatest resistance. The mind shouts, "They don't deserve it. They must suffer for what they did." Kenshin reminded himself of the teaching of the two arrows and emptiness. The person who betrayed him was not a fixed demon. They were a changing, suffering being, driven by their own ignorance and confusion. The fire of his anger was fueled by the illusion that they were perfectly whole and malicious. But in truth, they too were likely holding their own burning charcoal. He began to breathe out metta towards this person, not as a condoning of the hurtful action, but as a wish for their freedom from the ignorance that caused the harm. He whispered, "May you be free from suffering. May you find peace. May you be free from the darkness that caused you to strike out." Initially, the feeling was cold, forced, and perhaps even fake. But Kenshin kept breathing and wishing, understanding that the action of wishing kindness is the path to the feeling of kindness. He focused on the breath, turning the sensation of resentment into a steady, quiet resolve to wish well. Slowly, imperceptibly, the dry knot of resentment in his stomach began to loosen. He was no longer agreeing with the person's actions, but he was releasing the desperate need for them to suffer. He realized that the greatest form of revenge is not retribution, but simply walking away from the conflict, carrying neither their pain nor his own self-generated anger. By wishing them peace, he was, paradoxically, granting himself the deepest peace. He was cutting the cord that tied his happiness to their misery. This is the power of metta. It is the active, deliberate work of dissolving the boundaries that anger erects. Anger tells you they are separate, they are the enemy. I must protect my small island of self. Metta whispers, we are all connected by the thread of suffering. Their peace contributes to my own. As you lie in the quiet of the night, identify the last remaining ember of frustration in your heart. The person, the comment, the slight that still bothers you. Do not resist the feeling. Simply allow your breath to become the rain. With every inhale, feel the coolness of calm entering your heart. With every exhale, gently direct the wish for well-being towards that difficult person or situation. You don't have to love them. You don't have to agree with them. You simply have to be willing to wish for their peace, because their peace is the ultimate guarantee of your own. Let the golden light of loving kindness expand from your chest, washing over your body, then filling your room, your home, and the entire world. Rest in this transformative coolness, knowing that by wishing peace upon the world, you are anchoring peace within yourself. This is the quiet revolution of the compassionate heart, the final extinguishing of the self-scorching fire. The monastery gate, setting boundaries and letting go. Allow your breath to remain slow and deep, a gentle anchor in the current of the night. We have learned to cool the fire with patience and heal the scorched earth with loving kindness. Now, we turn to a crucial, often misunderstood aspect of Buddhist wisdom. The wisdom of boundaries and the act of refusing to accept what is harmful. This is not resistance, but spiritual self-preservation, rooted in the precepts of sila, ethical conduct. The ultimate freedom from anger is achieved not just by managing it, but by deciding not to receive it in the first place. Imagine a large, ancient Zen monastery sitting on a hill overlooking a bustling town. The monastery gate, massive and made of old dark wood, represents the line between the chaotic world of human suffering and the quiet sanctuary of practice. One day, a wealthy merchant from the town, notorious for his volatile temper and cruel tongue, arrived at the gate, absolutely consumed by rage over a business dealing gone wrong. He stormed up to the gate, demanded to see the Zen master, and proceeded to unleash a torrent of vicious, personal insults aimed not at the master, but at the entire monastic community. His words were toxic, designed to wound and provoke a fight. The Zen master, Master Kizan, stood quietly just inside the gate. He listened for a moment, his face calm, observing the merchant's furious, trembling body. Kizan did not feel anger, but a profound compassion for the merchant, recognizing that the man was being burned alive by his own uncontrolled mind. When the merchant finally paused, exhausted from his own venom, Master Kizan performed a simple, decisive action. He took a single step backward, placing himself clearly inside the gate, and then, without a single word of defense or counter-argument, he slowly, deliberately shut the massive wooden doors. The final sound was a low, resonant thud that echoed the ceiling of a boundary. The merchant was left alone outside, standing in the dust. His rage, having found no surface to stick to and no fire to feed upon, immediately began to collapse in on itself. He realized in that stark moment of silence that his terrible words had been rejected. They were not received. The monks had refused to participate in his suffering. A little while later, the merchant, humbled and ashamed, returned and knocked gently. The gate was opened slightly by a young novice. "I apologize," the merchant whispered. "I have acted shamefully. Why did your master not argue with me? Why did he simply shut the gate?" The novice relayed the master's quiet words. "The master said that he would not accept your gift." The merchant was bewildered. My gift, I gave.
Insults and hatred, not a gift. The novice explained the deeper teaching. When someone offers you a gift and you refuse to accept it, to whom does the gift belong? The merchant thought for a moment. It belongs to the one who offered it. Precisely, the novice said gently. Your anger, your insults, your hatred. Master Kazan refused to accept that gift. He shut the gate. Therefore, all that venom, all that heat, remains entirely with the one who offered it. The master protects his own inner garden by not taking on the burden of another's suffering. This story reveals the profound wisdom of setting ethical boundaries and non-acceptance. Non-acceptance is not the same as aggressive resistance. Resistance is engaging in the fight. You are wrong, I am right. Non-acceptance is the quiet, firm act of stepping back, closing the door, and refusing to allow the toxic energy to enter the sanctuary of your mind. The master practiced the highest form of sila, protecting the mind from the causes of negative karma. His peace was not dependent on the merchant being silent. His peace was dependent on his own choice not to internalize the merchant's chaos. He did not judge the merchant, for that would have been engaging with the emotion. He simply saw the destructive nature of the gift and chose to decline it. As you lie here, resting, consider the metaphorical gates of your own mind and heart. Where have you left the gate open today? Did you allow a casual, thoughtless comment from a colleague to enter and spoil your peace? Did you let a headline or a piece of gossip penetrate your inner calm? Did you take on the responsibility for another person's bad mood? Tonight, you have the quiet power to stand guard at your own gate. Imagine yourself as Master Kazan. Feel the immense, ancient weight of that wooden gate in your hands. Now, visualize any remaining negative energy, any uninvited worry, any lingering resentment standing outside, demanding entrance. Take a slow, intentional breath. Feel the firmness in your spine, and with a gentle, resolute inner commitment, slowly, firmly shut the gate. Click, thud. Seal the boundary. Declare silently, I refuse to accept this gift of negativity. I will not carry this heat. This pain belongs to the one who offered it, or it belongs to the temporary conditions of the world. My inner sanctuary remains undisturbed. This is not a hardening of the heart. It is a wise softening, a way of protecting the vulnerability of your peace so that it can grow stronger. By setting this boundary, you are not being selfish. You are being responsible for your own inner light. Only from a place of secure, guarded peace can you generate the healing rain of metta for the world. Let the heavy silence of the closed gates settle over you. Feel the deep security of your own protected mind. You are safe. You are separate from the storm. The chaos of the world must remain outside, and your heart is cool and unburdened. Rest deeply in this. Secure space. Anchored by your own wise boundaries. Part 7. The Monastery Gate. Setting boundaries and letting go. Allow your breath to remain slow and deep, a gentle anchor in the current of the night. We have learned to cool the fire with patience and heal the scorched earth with loving kindness. Now, we turn to a crucial, often misunderstood aspect of Buddhist wisdom, the wisdom of boundaries, and the act of refusing to accept what is harmful. This is not resistance, but spiritual self-preservation, rooted in the precepts of Sila, ethical conduct. The ultimate freedom from anger is achieved not just by managing it, but by deciding not to receive it in the first place. Imagine a large, ancient Zen monastery sitting on a hill overlooking a bustling town. The monastery gate, massive and made of old dark wood, represents the precise line between the chaotic, suffering-filled world of human passions and the quiet,
carefully cultivated sanctuary of practice. This gate is the physical embodiment of a monk's vow to ethical living. One day, a wealthy merchant from the town, notorious for his volatile temper, his cruel tongue, and his powerful ego, arrived at the gate. He was absolutely consumed by rage over a business dealing that had gone disastrously wrong. He stormed up to the gate, his face scarlet, demanding to see the Zen master. He proceeded to unleash a torrent of vicious, personal insults, aimed not just at the master, but at the entire monastic community, their vows, and their way of life. His words were pure venom, toxic energy designed to wound, provoke, and drag the inhabitants into his own internal conflict. The Zen master, Master Keizan, a man whose presence was like a cool stream on a summer day, stood quietly just inside the massive wooden gate. He did not flinch, did not react, and did not speak. He listened for a long moment, his eyes gentle, observing the merchant's furious, trembling body and the spittle flying from his lips. Keizan did not feel personal anger. He felt a profound, vast compassion for the merchant, recognizing that the man was quite literally being burned alive by his own uncontrolled mind, trapped in a self-made inferno. When the merchant finally paused, gasping for breath, physically exhausted from the sheer force of his own hatred, Master Keizan performed a simple, decisive action of immense spiritual power. He took a single, deliberate step backward, placing himself clearly and unequivocally inside the threshold of the gate. Then, without a single word of defense, counter-argument, or judgment, he slowly, ceremonially shut the massive wooden doors. The final sound was a low, resonant thud that echoed through the quiet air, the sound of a boundary being sealed. The merchant was left utterly alone outside, standing in the dusty road. His rage, having met no resistance to push against, found no surface to stick to, and no fire to feed upon, immediately began its inevitable collapse. He realized, in that stark, sudden silence, that his terrible words had been entirely rejected. They were not received. The monks had refused, politely but firmly, to participate in his suffering. They had refused to accept his destructive gift. A little while later, perhaps only an hour, the merchant, exhausted, humbled, and deeply ashamed, returned and knocked very gently on the heavy gate. The gate was opened a crack by a young novice. "I apologize deeply for my behavior," the merchant whispered, unable to meet the novice's eyes. "I have acted shamefully, but please tell me, why did your master not argue with me? Why did he simply shut the gate and leave me outside?" The novice relayed the master's quiet words, taught to him specifically for this moment. The master said that he would not accept your gift. The merchant was genuinely bewildered. "My gift? I gave insults and hatred. I gave curses. That is not a gift." The novice, repeating the wisdom he had been taught, explained the deeper, liberating teaching. Master Keizan asks, when someone offers you a gift and you refuse to accept it, to whom does the gift belong? The merchant, though exhausted, was forced to think. He pondered the question. "It belongs to the one who offered it," he finally conceded. "Precisely," the novice said gently. "Your anger, your insults, your hatred. Master Keizan refused to accept that gift. He shut the gate. Therefore, all that venom, all that heat remains entirely with the one who offered it. The master protects his own inner garden by not taking on the burden of another's suffering. This profound story reveals the essential wisdom of setting ethical boundaries and practicing non-acceptance. Non-acceptance is not an aggressive, reactive pushing away. Resistance is engaging in the mental fight. You are wrong. I am right. I must defend myself. Non-acceptance, however, is the quiet, firm act of stepping back, closing the door, and refusing to allow the toxic energy to enter and contaminate the sanctuary of your own mind. Master Kazan was practicing the highest form of sila, ethical conduct, specifically protecting his mind and the community's collective peace from the causes of negative karma. His peace was not dependent on the merchant choosing silence. His peace was dependent only on his own choice not to internalize the merchant's chaos. He did not condemn the merchant, for judgment is a form of engagement. He simply saw the destructive nature of the gift and chose, with clarity and compassion, to decline it. The merchant's rage was a piece of burning charcoal. By refusing to touch it, Master Kazan ensured that only the merchant would feel the burn. This is a master class in spiritual self-protection. As you lie here resting, consider the metaphorical gates of your own mind and heart. Where have you left the gate wide open today? Did you, out of habit or lack of awareness, allow a casual, thoughtless comment from a colleague or a harsh word from a family member to enter and spoil your peace? Did you let a frantic news headline or a piece of toxic social media gossip penetrate your inner calm? Did you take on the emotional burden and responsibility for another person's bad mood or outburst? Tonight, you hold the quiet, unassailable power to stand guard at your own gate. Imagine yourself as Master Kazan, standing firmly on the threshold of your inner sanctuary. Feel the immense ancient weight of that wooden gate in your hands. Now, visualize any remaining negative energy, any uninvited worry, any lingering resentment, standing outside, demanding entrance. It is asking you to take it on, to carry it. Take a slow, intentional breath. Feel the deep, stable firmness in your spine and the quiet resolve in your heart. And with a gentle, resolute inner commitment, slowly, deliberately shut the gate. Feel the separation. Hear the sound. Click. Thud. Seal the boundary with your breath. Declare silently to the lingering energy, I refuse to accept this gift of negativity. I will not carry this heat or this burden. This pain belongs to the conditions that produced it, or it belongs to the one who offered it. My inner sanctuary remains undisturbed. This act is not a hardening of the heart. It is, paradoxically, a wise softening, a way of protecting the vulnerability of your deepest peace so that it can grow stronger and more spacious. By setting this boundary, you are not being selfish. You are fulfilling the highest ethical responsibility, the responsibility for your own inner light. Only from a place of secure, guarded peace can you reliably generate the healing rain of metta for the world. If you are constantly depleted by accepting the negativity of others, you have nothing left to give. Let the heavy silence of the closed gates settle over you now. Feel the deep, profound security of your own protected mind. You are safe. You are separate from the storm. The chaos of the world must remain outside, and your heart is cool, spacious, and unburdened. Rest deeply in this secure, unassailable space, anchored by your own wise, gentle boundaries. The gate is shut. The fire cannot enter. The river flows, acceptance and non-resistance to what is. Settle completely now. Let go of any remaining effort, any final tension, and simply float upon the stillness of your breath. Our journey now leads us to the wisdom of acceptance and non-resistance, often referred to simply as tathata, suchness, or thatness. This is the ultimate freedom from anger, the understanding that fighting reality is the definition of suffering. When we cease trying to control the uncontrollable, the burning coal simply falls from our hand. We learn to let the river flow. Imagine a remote, breathtakingly beautiful monastery built right on the bend of a powerful, fast-flowing river. The monks there are taught that the river is their greatest master, a perpetual lesson in the nature of reality. One monk, named Tetsugen, was appointed to the seemingly simple task of tending to a small, ornamental wooden fence built close to the riverbank. Tetsugen was a man of intense, determined will. He was easily frustrated by things that did not obey his intention. His current source of profound irritation was the river itself. Every spring, the river would swell with snowmelt, and the powerful, surging current would inevitably damage his fence. It would splinter the wood, shift the stones, and sometimes pull entire sections away. Tetsugen would watch the destruction, and the familiar fire of anger would ignite. He would rail internally against the river. How selfish, how destructive. Why can it not stay within its banks? I work so hard, and it ruins everything. He was angry at the river for being a river, a powerful, changing force. He was fighting the fundamental nature of the environment he inhabited. Each time, he would stubbornly rebuild the fence exactly as it was before, with the same materials, in the exact same spot, trying to force the river to conform to his idea of order and permanence. And each time, the river would wait patiently for the next flood and demolish his effort. The more he resisted the river's reality, the more he suffered. His anger was simply his mind saying, I demand that the flow of life stop for my convenience. One morning, after a particularly devastating spring flood, Tetsugen sat beside the ruins of his fence, utterly defeated, the ashes of his anger now cold despair. The Zen master of the river monastery, Master Kosen, came and sat beside him. Tetsugen, the master said, pointing to the river, tell me what you are seeing. I see a cruel, indifferent force, Tetsugen whispered. I see destruction. I see the ruin of my work. I see the river fighting me. Master Kosen smiled and picked up a smooth, river-worn stone. The river is not fighting you, Tetsugen. You are fighting the river. The river simply is. It flows. It swells. It shrinks. It carries. It deposits. It does not think about your fence. It is pure tathata, pure suchness. Your anger, the master continued gently, is your refusal to accept the reality of the river's flow. You are holding on to the idea of a permanent, fixed fence, a permanent, fixed riverbank, and a permanent, fixed amount of effort that should be rewarded. But everything, absolutely everything in this universe is subject to change. Anicca. The fence is temporary. The effort is temporary. The river's bank is temporary. The moment you are fighting is already gone. Your suffering comes from trying to impose your small will onto the vast, indifferent will of the universe. You are fighting the fact of what is. The master then pointed to a massive, ancient boulder that stood firmly in the middle of the riverbed, where the current was strongest. The water rushed around it, smoothing its surface, but the boulder remained. When you resist the flow, you are like a poorly built fence, easily splintered. When you accept the flow, you become like that boulder. You are not resisting the water, you are simply being what you are, allowing the water to flow around you, without demanding that it change its course. Master Kosen stood up. Tetsugen, stop trying to rebuild the same fence. Observe the river, accept its nature. Then, and only then, can you truly cooperate with it. If the river flows strongly, perhaps you need to build the fence higher up, or maybe you don't need a fence at all. True peace is found in the deep, quiet acceptance of tathata, the reality of things just as they are. Tetsugen took the master's words into his heart. He spent the next year not building, but simply watching the river. He observed the subtle shifts in the current, the way the water pooled in some places and rushed in others. He stopped feeling angry at the inevitable changes. He simply noted them. The fire in his heart was replaced by a quiet, objective curiosity. He realized the freedom of simply allowing the world to be itself, without the heavy burden of his approval or disapproval. When it came time to rebuild, he chose to place a series of small, low stones, allowing the water to simply flow over them harmlessly during the flood, rather than trying to build a wall against the river. He had moved from resistance to cooperation, from anger to acceptance. The effort became effortless. His inner peace was no longer contingent upon the river being still. As you lie here now, let this wisdom of the flowing river wash over you. Identify the areas of your life where you are stubbornly fighting the current, the person who will never change, the past event you keep wishing hadn't happened, the financial reality you resist, or the physical ailment you rage against. That resistance, that mental fighting, is the fuel for the fire of anger and frustration. In this moment of deep rest, allow yourself to practice unconditional acceptance. Accept the finality of the past event. Accept the nature of the difficult person. Accept the situation not because you like it, but because it is. This acceptance is not resignation. It is a profound recognition of reality, a radical surrender of the ego's demand for control. With every gentle breath, repeat the silent affirmation. This is what is. This is the flow. Feel the tension melt away from your muscles as you cease fighting the invisible currents of life. You are the ancient boulder, stable, unmoving in your center, allowing the rushing waters of change and challenge to flow harmlessly around you. By accepting the way the river flows, you are setting down the heaviest burden of all, the burden of trying to change reality. Let the river carry you now, not in a state of frantic resistance, but in a state of effortless, deep peace. Part 9. The Silent Witness, the Observer of the Mind. Allow your entire being to surrender to the deep peace of the present moment. We have traveled far, dropping the burning coal, refusing the second arrow, and yielding to the flow of tathata. Now, we arrive at the core of personal freedom, the cultivation of the silent witness, the observer of the mind. This practice, rooted in vipassana, or insight meditation, is the master key to preventing the fire of anger from ever igniting. When you are the witness, you are no longer the actor, and the intense drama of passion loses its hold on you. Imagine an ancient, silent cave where a solitary Zen master, named Gyozen, spent decades in retreat. The darkness of the cave was broken only by the thin sliver of light from the entrance, symbolizing the narrow, focused light of awareness. Gyozen's entire practice was to become this light, to simply observe everything that arose in his mind without judgment or engagement. One cold evening, Gyozen was deep in meditation. Suddenly, An intense memory from his distant past arose with startling clarity, a memory of a profound injustice committed against him when he was a young man. It was an event he believed he had long forgiven, yet the memory carried with it a powerful surge of the old, familiar heat. The tightening in the chest, the clenched jaw, the rapid flow of judgment. This was the ancient fire trying to rekindle itself. In the past, he would have instantly become the victim, the angry one. He would have replayed the scene, justified his rage, and plunged himself back into that toxic drama. But years of practice had changed his fundamental identity. He was no longer the young man who suffered. He was the silent witness sitting in the cave. When the anger arose, Gyozin did not suppress it, which would have been resistance. Nor did he follow it, which would have been surrender. He did something radical and utterly simple. He turned the pure light of his awareness onto the sensation itself. He observed the anger as a pure phenomenon, stripping it of its narrative. He noted the physical sensations, heat rising, contraction in the abdomen, quickening of the breath. He named the emotion without judgment. Anger, just anger, a wave of energy. He did not say, "I am angry because he did this to me." He simply observed, there is anger arising in this awareness. He realized that the anger was not him. It was merely a temporary, conditioned event happening in his vast, empty mind, much like a firefly briefly blinking in the darkness of the cave. The firefly shines brightly, but it does not become the cave. The anger arises, but it does not become the witness. Because Gyozin refused to enter the story, because he refused to attach the thought to the sensation, the fuel line was cut. The anger, deprived of the mental narrative it needed to sustain itself, peaked, began to weaken, and then, like a wave pulling back into the ocean, it dissolved. It simply passed through the spaciousness of his awareness and disappeared, leaving the silence of the cave, the silence of the mind, undisturbed. This is the profound practice of mindful observation.
Cultivation of the silent witness. The key insight is separation. You are not your thoughts, and you are not your emotions. You are the boundless space in which thoughts and emotions appear and disappear. When anger arises, the unpracticed mind immediately merges with the emotion, thinking, "I am angry." The anger and the self become one, and the resulting fire is catastrophic. The mind of the silent witness, however, sees the emotion as an object. There is a feeling of anger present. By maintaining this subtle distance, this gentle gap between the observer and the observed, you prevent the self from being scorched. As you lie here, resting, this is the final, most refined practice for achieving true peace. You don't have to chase away the thoughts that interrupt your peace. You simply have to stop becoming them. Let us try it now. If a thought of frustration, a memory of injustice, or a plan for tomorrow's reaction surfaces, do not move. Do not try to solve it. Do not judge it as a failure of your meditation. Instead, instantly switch to the role of the silent witness. Identify the thought, a thought of worry. Identify the sensation, a knot in the forehead. You are the cave, vast and still. The thought is the firefly, bright but ephemeral. You are the clear sky. The anger is the passing cloud. Breathe into the sensation of the anger or the worry, accepting its presence completely, but refuse to let your attention follow the narrative. Just observe the pure, raw energy of the feeling. Notice how it vibrates, how it moves,
and how quickly it changes. You will find that without the fuel of your personal story, without the engagement of your ego, the powerful energy of anger cannot sustain itself for more than a few breaths. It is a bluff, a paper tiger that requires your belief to possess teeth. This silent witness is your true, unassailable self, the cool, quiet center that remains untouched by the storms of the mind. It is the unconditioned awareness that the Buddha taught was the path to ultimate freedom. Anger cannot harm pure awareness. It can only harm the identification with anger. Rest now, in the stillness of the cave. You are not the body lying in the bed. You are the awareness that knows the body is resting. You are not the thoughts that flutter through your mind. You are the awareness that knows the thoughts are fluttering. In this deep, quiet realization, the fire of anger has no ground to stand on, no air to breathe, and no narrative to cling to. You have finally and completely set down the burning coal, not by fighting it, but by simply ceasing to be the hand that holds it. Rest in the supreme, safe, and infinite peace of the observer. The ashes of the fire, true peace and final release. Draw your final breaths deeply, feeling the total surrender of your body to the comfort of the moment. We have completed the journey of letting go of anger, moving from the recognition of the self-made fire to the ultimate stillness of the silent witness. Our final destination is the understanding of true peace and final release, the state known as nibbana, nirvana. Not as a distant heaven, but as the complete extinguishing of the three root poisons: greed, hatred, anger, and delusion. This is the ultimate freedom from the need to burn. Imagine the same Zen monastery from our earlier stories, standing quietly on the hill. But now it is years later, and we find Master Kazan, the one who shut the gate on the merchant's rage, sitting by the central fire pit in the great hall. The fire is long dead, leaving only a bed of fine, cool gray ashes. A young monk approaches the master and asks, "Master, you taught us how to avoid the fire of anger, how to refuse the coal, but what is true peace? Is it merely the absence of anger, or is it something more?" Master Kazan gently picked up a handful of the cool, soft ash. He let the fine powder sift slowly through his fingers, watching it drift back down to the pit. "The avoidance of anger is only the beginning," the master replied, his voice like the soft whispering of the ash. "The true definition of peace is not merely the absence of the flame, but the removal of the kindling itself. Anger and all suffering needs fuel. It needs desire for things to be permanent. It needs resistance to change, and it needs the delusion that I am separate and must be defended." He explained that for many years, even after refusing the merchant's gift, he still carried the memory of the heat, the potential for anger. He was vigilant, always standing guard at the gate. But the ultimate peace is found when the need for the guard is gone, because the fundamental conditions for the fire are removed. "Look at these ashes," the master instructed. "This is what remains when the heat is entirely gone. There is no potential for flame here. If you were to blow on them, they would only scatter harmlessly. This is nibbana, the complete cooling, the perfect extinguishing." He said that anger, hatred, is one of the three great fires of the mind, along with greed, attachment, and delusion, ignorance. As long as one of these fires still smolders, the others can be quickly reignited. When we truly let go of anger, we begin to see the illusion of the fixed self, the one who needs to be angry, the one who must be right. This realization is the wisdom that cools the whole system. The master continued, his gaze drifting up to the vast empty ceiling. The anger we once held on to felt solid, powerful, and necessary. But when we applied the practices, the mindfulness of the witness, the coolness of patience, the compassion of metta, we found it was as empty as the pot, as transient as the river, and as fragile as a ghost. We realized that the source of the heat was merely a powerful habit of the mind, and the eye that was being burned was just an idea, a collection of changing parts. The final release is the deep, quiet knowledge that there is no fixed, independent
Self to defend. No permanent thing to hold on to, and therefore, no reason to generate fire. The battle is over not because you won, but because you finally saw that there was no enemy, and there was no fixed you to fight the battle. He handed a small, smooth stone, cooled by years of flowing water, to the young monk. Carry this stone. It is cool, heavy, and silent. Let it remind you that your true nature is like this, unburnable, untouched by the passions of the world. The practice is finished when your mind no longer reaches for the kindling. As you drift now into the deepest sleep, let the wisdom of the ashes of the fire settle over you. You have set down the charcoal. You have dropped the second arrow. You have closed the gate. You have allowed the river of reality to flow. You are the silent witness. Now, simply experience the profound, final cooling that remains. Feel the deep stillness in your chest, where the knot of anger once resided. Recognize that this stillness, this coolness, is your inherent state. It is the peace that was always there, merely obscured by the smoke of transient thoughts and reactions. There is no more need to guard. There is no more need to fight. There is no more need to justify. Everything is as it is, perfectly impermanent, perfectly empty, and perfectly whole. Your only task now is to rest completely in this peace. The peace of a fire that is completely burned out, leaving only the cool, fine ash of liberation. Let your breath deepen, your body relax fully, and your mind dissolve into the soft, unburdened silence of the night. You are released. You are cool. You are home. If you found solace in this quiet wisdom, please consider subscribing to the Lotus Whisper channel. Your support helps us share these ancient stories and teachings to bring peace to more weary hearts. May your rest be deep and restorative.